Hello, everybody, and good evening, and very warm welcome to all to our public talk as a part of our activities here at NECAFLA, the Center for Spiritist Studies Camille Flammarion here in Brussels. My name is Karen, and first of all, I would like to apologize to all those who had been here 2 weeks ago and who had experienced some sound issues. So actually, I had experienced them, and you were not hearing me. That should be resolved now, and I hope you can hear me. If anything, please write in the chat. I should be able to see that today. So I placed it here and I can see it. Okay, so I'm really sorry. So we repeat the same topic again because obviously you couldn't hear it. And let's reflect a bit today about the spiritual influences that might exist around us, on our thoughts, and so on. First of all, just a few words about our group. For that, I will change the screen so you can see it better. We have our public talks in English as this evening, every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on our YouTube channel and on Facebook live broadcast. And some very good news, the talks in French and in Portuguese that take place on Monday and Saturdays respectively, they are held sur place, so at our premises in Saint-Gilles. But if you would like to take part there, it is necessary that you please book in advance to make sure you can really go there, because naturally places are limited due to the situation that we are in. And if you're not able to go there, you still have the opportunity to accompany them live via Facebook and YouTube, like now. In order to book, you can either send us an email under this address, info@necafla.be, or contact us via Facebook Messenger or via WhatsApp under the number that you can see here. And all the details about when talks take place and what you need to be aware of, you find this all on our website, necafla.be. And there's also more information about appointments you can take, either for a fraternal conversation if you need to talk to someone, really any issue that might worry you. We are there to help you, and please contact us in order to book an appointment. Also, the laying on of hands, so-called passe in Portuguese, can also be booked now either on Saturdays or Mondays. And also you have the opportunity to have a look at our library and our bookshop. But for that, please also book an appointment. Okay, but now to our talk about this topic, spiritual influences on our thoughts. And before we start, as always, I'd like to invite you to a short prayer. So let's please calm down and try to leave all our worries behind for a moment. And just be grateful for the opportunity of coming together, of studying and reflecting a bit together about a topic that affects all of us, trying to understand the mechanics of spiritual influences and what opportunities we have, what role we play in there. So we ask God for permission to begin our talk this evening, and our mentors for guidance. So be it. Have you ever been in a situation where you tried to read a book that you've always wanted to read, a very, very good one, an interesting one, and now that you finally have the opportunity to read it, you realize after some time that for at least 5 minutes or longer, you're stuck on a page and try to read it again, and while you're trying to read, you actually realize that your thoughts are not there, but that they are revolving about some issue that worries you, some not very pleasant issue about someone who might have hurt you, and you go back over and over again, although you do not want it. and you cannot concentrate on your lovely book that you would like to read. Or maybe another situation when you're in the bathroom brushing your teeth and finally realize that while you've been doing that, you have been discussing in your mind with someone about something that has obviously touched you somehow or worries you, and having a discussion over and over again that you do not really want and that doesn't lead us anywhere, because at that moment you do not really resolve anything. Does that sound familiar? I mean, to me it does, and these are some of the issues I would like to reflect upon a bit this evening. When we study the Spiritist philosophy, we learn that we are all spirits. All of us are spirits. Some of us are incarnate in a physical body, and others are in the spiritual world, our real home, as we learn. When we reflect about this, when spirits leave the physical body and return to the spiritual world, where does this world actually lie? Where is the spiritual world placed? Is there some geographical location? Is it somewhere circumscribed? Or where do spirits live after leaving the material body? And the Spirit's book offers us an answer and clearly teaches us that the spirits are everywhere, and that the spiritual world is around us, extends infinitely, and that there is no circumscribed geographical location. So we are living also surrounded by discarnate spirits. And if that is the fact, if we share our surroundings with spirits, how does this actually work? How do we get along with each other? I think that's important to reflect about a bit. Do spirits have any influence on us? And that's a question that Allan Kardec also asked the high order spirits when he prepared the Spirit's book. And we find this in question 459 in the Spirit's book, where he asked, do spirits have any influence on our thoughts and actions? And the answer is very short, but let's see. Their influence on you in this regard is greater than you suppose. For very, very frequently it is they who guide you. Very frequently it is they who guide you. I think this is an answer that merits some closer reflection, because if it is the spirits who guide us, how does this reconcile with the concept of free will, which we also learn and which is one of the main pillars of the Spiritist teachings? We learn that we have the free will to do what we please, but that we also have the responsibility for all of our actions, and that actually our evolution is based on our actions and what we do out of our free will. So how does this go together with this answer where we learn it's actually the spirits who often guide us? So do they guide us, or do we have a free will? And it would actually be a nice excuse, wouldn't it, if we do something that we would rather not have done, or which we really regret, and then say, well, maybe that guidance was not very good. But let's reflect a bit more about it and try to learn more about it to understand the processes. That was a bit quick, sorry. But if spirits influence our thoughts, we can go to the next slides and ask that question: what is a thought actually? And one possible answer that we find is in the book Liberation, written by the spirit André Louis through the mediumship of Chico Xavier. And he explains it that way. What is a thought? It is a creative power of our soul, the continuation of ourselves. And through thought, we influence our environment, and we establish the nature of our influence, either to the good or to the bad. So we influence through our thoughts, and the Spirit Emmanuel, in a book called Thought and Life, he explains us that thought is an electromagnetic force. And if we learn that through that electromagnetic force we influence our environment, then we can also imagine that that we are also being influenced. If we influence, others influence as well. Now, how does this influence work? How are the mechanics of this influence? How do we connect with each other? And we do find an answer to that question, not necessarily, but I'm sure you will find it in some physics book, but we can also open the Gospel according to Spiritism and we'll find a very understandable and easy to understand explanation, because the starting point, we find this in chapter 27, which reflects upon prayer. It's called, the chapter is called Ask and You Shall Receive. And it explains us that we must all, in order to understand what happens when we connect through thought, we must visualize all beings, both incarnate and discarnate, as immersed in the universal fluid that occupies space, just as we are immersed in the atmosphere of this world. And to understand this cosmic fluid, or universal fluid as it is called here, there are two terms for the same type of fluid. We will find some help in the book, another book by the spirit of André Luiz. It's called Evolution in Two Worlds. And he gives a definition about the cosmic fluid, which says the cosmic fluid is the divine plasma, the creator's breath, or the nervous force of the all-wise. In that primordial element, constellations and suns, worlds and beings vibrate and live like fish in the ocean. Yeah, I find this a very nice image, like fish in the ocean, because then that's really easy to imagine. I think we're all immersed in that universal fluid, everything that exists, and all spirits, no matter where they may live. And then going back to the Gospel according to Spiritism, we will find more about the transmission of thought, because in chapter 27, it continues the following. This fluid, this universal fluid, receives an impulse of the will, and the fluid is the vehicle of thought. So it takes our thought along, and just as the air is the vehicle of sound, but with the difference that the vibrations in the air are circumscribed, while the vibrations of the universal fluid extend infinitely. There is no end. And therefore, we learn in the Gospel, when we direct a thought towards a being, either on earth or somewhere else, from incarnate to discarnate, we establish a fluidic current from our side to that other being, and this fluidic current transmits the thought. And also what we also learned, that the energy of the current depends on the strength and the thought of the will. So this is, as the Gospel explains us, this is also how spirits communicate amongst themselves through thought, how they transmit their inspiration to us, and how communications at a distance are established among incarnates. Hi, Bispo. I'm happy you can hear me. Thank you for getting back. Very good. That's very helpful. Now that's on the transmission of thought. And Emmanuel, in that same book that I mentioned before, I will have an image of that afterwards and you can see it better. Oops. Thought and light. He also explains us that our emotions, as well as our thoughts and actions, are dynamic elements of an inductive nature. And when we go on, we will see what else he explains about it. We assimilate the thoughts of those who think as we do. When we feel, visualize, speak, or act, we are in tune with the emotions or ideas of all other persons, incarnate or discarnate, who are on our wavelength. We are constantly attracting or repelling mental energies that attach themselves to us. They will either strengthen us for good or evil, according to the direction we choose. So our thoughts have a certain frequency and wavelength, and we attune to thoughts sent out on a similar vibration. And André Luiz, in his book Action and Reaction, he compares that to a radio station where we are both emitting and receiving at the same time. When we send out a thought, he explains us, at a certain wavelength, then this thought on its way, before it gets back to us, because they always come back to us, on its way it gets enriched with elements of thoughts who are in tune on the same wavelength. So imagine if we send out a positive thought, this thought goes out, gets enriched by positive elements, and then it returns to us. But if we send out a thought that is less happy or less positive, then imagine the way it returns to us even worse, and that's when we feel even worse than before. So I'm happy. I'm really happy it works today, and you can hear us. So if you summarize it, we can imagine that we are all connected, or all in an ocean of thoughts, and that we actually will choose whom we connect with, because in which of all those waves that are around us will attach themselves to us, and this will depend on our thoughts, emotions, intentions, and so on, as Emmanuel teaches us. When we also study Spiritist literature, we learn that on talking about this issue, it's very fundamental to get to know our central topic, our mental priority, what really moves us, because this is the main energy that we send out, and then on a certain wavelength and with the intentions attached, we will connect to beings on a similar wavelength. And spirits who are in tune with us will approach us, because we must understand when someone discarnates, when we leave the material body, we do not become enlightened all of a sudden through that process, but the spirit will continue the same way as it has lived before. There's no magic enlightenment involved there. And spirits who had a certain inclination before, when they were in a material body, this might continue, and then they attach themselves to incarnate beings with similar inclinations. And in Spiritist literature, we find many examples of influence by spirits. And I just chose two of them to show both a positive and a negative example. One is also found in the book Liberation by André Luiz. We get to know a spirit called Mauricio. While André Luiz, he's in the spiritual world, but visiting a doctor's practice here on Earth, and he meets a spirit who is helping that doctor, and that's the spirit of Mauricio. And he, in former times, had actually worked for that doctor while he was incarnate, and now back in the spiritual world, he continues to help him and trying to inspire him, lead him on the right path. And he explains this a bit in that book, but he also mentions that, of course, his influence can only be perceived depending on how open the incarnate person, in that case the doctor, is. So, and he also says, he literally says that, if the doctors would only pray, then they would be more open to this influence. Because he says that our well-being and our health is something so important that in general people who work in that sector will have a lot of assistance from the spiritual side. But if we lift ourselves up a bit, we are more prone to really perceive that persistence. And then on another note, we meet the spirit of Louise in the book Action and Reaction, also by André Luiz. No, Luiz is actually, he's incarnate. I'm sorry. He's incarnate. He's a family father. They live on a farm in Brazil, very well placed and with lots of material beings already. But he is so greedy. He's trying to enlarge his farm and buy more land and get richer and richer. And in that process, he does not give anything to his family. So he kind of only tries to get more and more material beings without really using it. And André Luis describes a scene where at night there are spirits who are on the same vibration and who also have this greed as one of their central topics, and who actually influence that man even more to become even more greedy and to get more land and only focus on that. And through that influence, the situation becomes even more serious. But it is not, Luis didn't start becoming that way because negative spirits would have influenced someone who wouldn't have never even thought about being greedy, but it's because he had this tendency and he didn't pay attention to what he was doing, or he was thinking he was doing the right thing. So there were just other spirits attaching themselves to him. This is why it's so important that we really get to know ourselves, that we get to know our strengths, our weaknesses, and really be honest to ourselves to see where are our weaknesses, and not only our weaknesses, also our strengths, obviously, but where do we need to improve still? And we do have, of course, a lot to improve in order to avoid such an influence. Now, what can we do if we feel that our thoughts are being influenced in a negative way, or that we are in a situation where our thoughts revolve around some situation and we have the feeling that we cannot get out? Yeah, just as you said, this will pray and keep watching. Yeah, exactly. That's so important to pay attention to what our thoughts and feelings are. And if we pay attention and realize what is happening, can we do anything? And that's also what Allan Kardec asked the higher order spirits when he prepared the Spirits book. Can people avoid the influence of spirits who incite them to wrongdoing? Yes, and the spirits answer is yes, because they only attach themselves to those who solicit them with their desires or attract them with their thoughts. Which sounds logical when we remember what we saw before. And then again, as we just said, we need to, if we are in such a situation, okay, spirits only attach themselves depending on our thoughts, or negative spirits who want to influence us negatively only do that if there is some similar vibration. And we have to be honest to ourselves and analyze our thoughts, our emotions, and ask ourselves, what may have been the trigger? Where did I open the door to such an influence? Sometimes it's really a thought or a thought pattern maybe that we're not really aware of. But if we truly analyze ourselves, it may help us to find the answer. I know it's not easy, but it definitely helps us. So, and how can we then neutralize such influence? If we are in that situation, we realize, okay, I did something wrong. What can we do? And also, Allan Kardec thought of that as well. But what means can we neutralize the influence of bad spirits? And the high order spirits answer us by doing good and placing all your trust in God. You repel their influence and you destroy the power they desire to have over you. I mean, think about what it really means by doing good and placing all our trust in God. I think this already would merit two separate talks because it's a very complex question. Maybe it helps, just for a moment, go to another slide. The Spirit of Emmanuel puts it in other words, where he says, give new life to your mind through study that elevates the thought process, and consecrate yourselves to incessant service to others. This is the ideal formula so as to liberate yourselves from all forms of shackles. And I think that, yeah, it's the theory is easy, and I think it's clear for everyone that, of course, it would be ideal if our thoughts would always be uplifted, but we know it's difficult. But this tip by Emmanuel, through study that elevates the thought process, I find this very helpful, because if, for instance, we start the day with a uplifting message that might help us through the day, or if you really study something that elevates us, and where we understand also the processes or behind life, like for instance the Spiritist philosophy explains to us, then it is easier for us to understand, okay, if there's a supreme being behind everything that happens, a supreme intelligence, we may have to accept what we cannot change, and there's no use of complaining and being pessimistic. So these studies really help us to find a different perspective to life. And then the second point, incessant service to others. That's so important, because that's something that, for instance, the well-known medium Chico Xavier or high order spirits like Joana de Angelis often mentioned, how important it is that we spare some time of our life, get out of our own lives, and in order to help others. And in that moment when we help others, we first of all forget about our own problems. We do something positive where we see we can really help someone, and at the end of the day we might realize that our problems might not be the biggest ones on earth. So this, by doing good to others, it also helps ourselves. And going back again to a second part, or another part of that answer to question 469 in the Spirit's book, I also find it important to mention that what the Spirits tell us. Above all, distrust spirits who flatter your pride, for they are attacking you at your weakest point. And again, this is something that's a question that we only can answer to ourselves. So do I do something out of pride, or is there a danger that in certain situations a non-healthy pride may be involved? Therefore, so important again, watch and pray that you mentioned before. Many comments, I'm trying to follow them. It's nice that you're all here. So that a bit about the question how we can neutralize the influence of bad spirits, or let's call them less evolved spirits. And one very important point also that Emmanuel mentions in his book Thought and Life, our will is the decisive factor. Only the will is sufficiently strong to sustain the harmony of the spirit. So we can have the best of intentions, and we can have the best of understanding about the process that is behind the influence of thoughts. If we do not really want to pay attention, elevate our thoughts, it is difficult. So he's really saying only the will is like the button to turn on and off the machine. We have to really want it. And I know it's easy to speak about it. It is a very difficult process. But that's what we're here for, right? In order to learn, to improve ourselves. And we will stumble over and over again, but it's important to get up again and continue with the will as decisive factor and try our best again. It's normal. If we were perfect, we would not be here. Wouldn't be. But maybe a few thoughts about preventive measures that the Spiritist teachings offers us in that regard. How can we strengthen our will? How can we elevate our thoughts even more? Well, one important step that I think, to start our morning with a prayer, as short as it may be, to elevate our thoughts and to be grateful for this new opportunity and grateful for everything that we have been offered. And if you do not have if someone does not have the habit of praying, maybe a short meditation, or just some positive thoughts sent out to the universe for the opportunity of being here and starting the day like that is, from my point of view, different than from starting in the way kind of hearing the alarm clock and starting to run through the day without even breathing and taking a moment to think about what we're actually doing here. Then, of course, as we said here, as you said, paying attention to our thoughts, to our emotions, words, actions, all the time, watch and pray. But how quickly do we get lost? I'm aware of that, and literally sometimes it's just you go through the morning with the best of intentions, and then leaving the house, just the first situation that comes unexpectedly already can take us from those good intentions. I know. But again, it's a process that will probably take longer than this one incarnation only, but we're here to learn. And often, I think it's the people in our day-to-day environment that challenge us the most, that sometimes are a cause that for us to stumble a bit, and let it be a family member or a colleague or a friend that challenges us more than others, where we need more patience than others, no matter what they do, right? But studying a bit about what the Spiritist teachings offer us about our many incarnations that we have, we understand that we get the chance to meet again those whom we may have hurt in the past, or who might have hurt us, and now we get a chance to reconcile and learn to love one another in a way that we at least get along with each other. And these are often people that challenge us the most. And it's not saying that if someone challenges us, it would have been their fault. If we are in a difficult relation, I think all of us have their share in that. And it's especially towards those persons, it's important that we try again and do our best to be more tolerant, patient, and not lose that patience. Exactly, Alice. We really need to disciplinate our thoughts. Absolutely right. I know it's a difficult learning process, but we're here, and I found a very helpful message by a spirit called Sheila. The original is a message written in Portuguese. I did not translate the whole message, but rather a few important points. I mean, the whole message is important, but the main points are just as bullet points here. Because she explains to us that no one walks through life without encountering antagonisms. Try not to see in your antagonists deliberate opponents of your peace. But rather, she says, try to interpret them as instruments of the Most High in favor of your inner progress. For instance, those who do not see the world from your point of view are an impulse that teaches you to accept others the way they are. And someone who hurts your sensitive soul with rough words is an agent of life who teaches you to be tolerant. Someone who hinders you in the achievements of the highest ideals is a companion who calls you to be persistent. And our antagonists are unintentionally important factors for our elevation and for our moral development. I find this a very helpful message, because when we think about it, why are we here? We're here in order to progress, in order to learn. And how will we progress if we do not get the opportunity and the lessons that we need to learn? If I need to learn to be tolerant, then I need situations that teach me to be tolerant. One step is to have this theoretical knowledge, but if we do not practice, it is difficult for us to learn. Same with patience. Virtue that I definitely need to develop. If I do not get the opportunity of using that patience, of trying to be more patient, then it will be difficult to learn. And of course, for many of us, or most of us, or all, maybe it is still very difficult if we are in such a situation where our patience is tested, to say automatically, thank you so much for being an instrument for my progress and for teaching me to be patient. But maybe reflecting about this can help us a bit more to become more patient, more tolerant, and to try and find a different perspective to those who challenge us, to really see them as instruments for our progress. And then maybe not at that same moment where we are challenged, but maybe later we are in a position to silently thank them in our mind or include them in our prayers. Because that's also something that she later on talks about in the message. If someone does not treat us in a very fraternal way, this is no reason for us to do that in the same way, but rather do our best and try even and pray for people. I know it's difficult, but that's a learning process. And I do have to learn a lot. That's why I probably had to prepare this talk twice in order to really focus more on it. So yeah, summarizing, I think no matter how we look at life, we will always come back to the main message of the gospel, according to Spiritism, the gospel in general, that without learning to love, we will not find peace. And there are many, many beautiful quotes in the gospel about this topic. I like this one very much in chapter 11. Happy are they who love, for they know the anguish neither of the soul nor of the body. And I think, that's where we try to get. That's why we're here all together. So thank you very much for your patience. Thank you for your feedback and for also sharing that for you as well. It's a big challenge. That makes me feel better. But that's why we're also studying together and exchanging together to see we are not the only ones, and it should not discourage us if we stumble again, but rather to try and start all over again. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you for your attention, for your patience, and let's finish with our final prayer. Okay, so let's calm down again. Try to lift up our thoughts and to let us thank God for the opportunity of spending these moments together, reflecting about the mechanics of the influences that exist on our thoughts, and also what we can do in order to feel better, to try to find a different perspective on life. Very grateful for all the light and help that these teachings offer us. I'd also like to thank our mentors who guide us, all those who are helping us, and let us also send out these vibrations of fraternity, harmony to all those in need, to those who are suffering at this moment, those who are having difficulty, be they incarnate or discarnate. May all suffering hearts be embraced by these vibrations of peace and hope. And may these vibrations also remain with all of us who were connected this evening. So be it. Thank you very much to all of you. Next week there will be a new talk, and see you sometime again. Take care.